Modern technology is helping the state watch its citizens, but that same technology is also letting citizens watch the state.
We know that Facebook is spying on us. We know that Google is spying on us. But those mediums can also become mediums of counter-forensics. We are watching the watchers. We are reversing the forensic gaze.
The rise of social media and the proliferation of smartphones has made it easier than ever for people to consume news. But not all this information is true. Some governments use these platforms to disseminate propaganda and monitor citizens' behaviour. Now this technology has also helped to turn the tables on the powerful.
Every comment, every photo, every video is a clue to ultimately getting at the truth. The big challenge is to figure out how we find all those clues and ultimately use them almost like pieces in a puzzle.
Alexa Koenig is a law professor and investigator. She gathers evidence from multiple digital sources to investigate some of the biggest human rights abuses in the 21st century.
So many war crimes cases fall apart at fairly early stages of prosecution. One of the big challenges is that prosecutors are over-relying on witness testimony. And of course, with time and trauma, a testimony becomes fallible.
Ms. Koenig's team has helped investigate atrocities in Myanmar, Syria and Yemen. Unlike traditional investigators, her team uses open source evidence.
So we brought together people doing big data analytics, satellite imagery, remote sensing, people who were thinking through how cell phones could be harnessed and support the stories of survivors.
The team has investigated atrocities in Myanmar in 2017. The evidence proved that the army had used Facebook's wide reach in the country to post false information inciting hatred against the Rohingya Muslim minority. This type of evidence is gaining traction and is being used by the international criminal courts.
Open source information that you can find online is increasingly being used by groups like the United Nations and by the International Criminal Court. And it released its first ever arrest warrant based on information pulled from social media in Libya.
Meanwhile, Bellingcat, a group of open source experts, has been investigating the poisoning of a former Russian spy, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter in 2018. They have made some striking discoveries. Bellingcat disclosed the names of 3 Russian agents who they allege were involved in the attack, strengthening the suspicion that it was sanctioned by the Russian state. In response, the Russian authorities claimed that the men were tourists, but Bellingcat proved that the 3 men were high-ranking members of the Russian army. One of the agents had even been honoured by President Vladimir Putin personally.
What Bellingcat did was they began to comb social media and find the profiles of the people who were thought to have been involved, that Russia was saying were just tourists, and ultimately establish the true identities in a way that really shocked the world.
Bellingcat cross-referenced photo and video evidence released by the British and Russian authorities with social media to find the men's true identities. This is not the first time a state has been accused of trying to cover its tracks.
Governments are trying to release false information about things that have taken place. We need to not only establish what has taken place, but to deconstruct government statements that are misleading.
Eyal Weizman is an open source expert based in the UK. The most recent incident which he has investigated raises questions about the death of Palestinians during an Israeli airstrike. In 2018, these 2 boys were sitting on a rooftop. They were killed moments after taking this selfie. The Israeli armed forces said they fired non-lethal warning shots to clear the area of civilians. They call this tactic knocking on the roof. Hours later, the Israeli army released a video which appears to show the 4 warning shots, followed by the main strike. But forensic architecture stitched together mobile phone and CCTV footage, disputing their claim. They allege the Israeli army did not release a video of the first shot, which killed the boys. Instead, it substituted it with a video of the third strike from another angle. The Israeli army denied distorting evidence. Investigating state operations isn't cheap. It takes time and resources.
One big question is always, where's the money coming from to do this kind of work? There are some individual donors who really believe in the power of technology for social good. And increasingly we do see some states that are really interested in the power and possibility of pulling together information.
The evidence and practices of groups such as Bellingcat and forensic architecture are open to everyone. This evidence is traceable and verifiable, but lawmakers must approach it with caution. The use of this evidence in court is in its infancy and raises several problems.
I think so few judges today are trained in ways to really interrogate what makes for a good digital investigation, that there's really a twofold risk. The first risk is that they're going to look at this very slick, sexy package and they're going to find it so convincing that they ultimately don't interrogate the underlying bits of information. The second risk, of course, is that they're just going to look at this and say, I have no way to understand kind of the original sources of this information, and so they dismiss it out of hand.
It is increasingly difficult to separate fact from fiction, but crowdsourced investigations offer a new way, giving a voice to victims and holding the powerful to account.